of the Shibori earring, and I've cut it out. And actually, while I was off camera, I decided I was going to design the look because I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do. And so as you can see, I've drawn some lines and I wasn't real sure how I wanted it to look. So I was like, okay, I've cut my Shibori. How do I want to put this on here? How do I want to design it? Now, this is a leaf petal shape. It's not 100% uniform. And I wanted it that way because I wanted it to look like a flower petal. But then I decided, because we have these flower beads, I wanted to incorporate those into the design and make like a, it looks like it's a leaf, but then at the bottom of the leaf, it has a little bouquet. So off camera, I went and did this, and I'm just going to show you real quick. It is, it's got the bouquet down here with some big beads. I have this leaf bead that I pulled from my stash that we're going to be using. So it looks like there's a little bouquet down here, little something fun. And then again, the edging to cover up my stitching. And then just a little drop, because like a petal would have a stamen or a vein. That's the vein. So it's the leaf covered by a bouquet. And I really like this design. It incorporates a lot of the beads from the bargain bead box. Seed beads from my stash, the leaf beads from my stash. But other than that, everything else comes from the bargain bead box. So I'm going to show you how I made this. Now, so first things first is I've got a sharp needle out of my kit, out of my stash. It's just a tiny needle, and I've threaded it with embroidery floss, in dark purple. But I needed this sharp needle because this, paint is pretty stiff, and so it makes it a lot harder to stitch on when you're working. So the first thing I'm going to do, as I always do, is I'm going to tack my thread. So I'm going to come up anywhere in the purple, and I'm going to take a nice big chunk of felt, and I'm just going to make a little stitch. And I don't know if you can see that there very well, but there is just a little bit of a stitch there, you know, a little bit of a loop, so that I know that if it starts to pull, you know, I'm going to know it's going to come through there. So that's pretty tight. Now I'm going to come up. So this line right here is where I need to stitch on my thread, or I need to stitch on my Shibori. So I'm going to come up through just a hair to the outside edge. And then I'm putting the yellow on the top, even though you really can't see a lot of yellow on this one because it was the way the ribbon was dyed. It was dyed on a diagonal, and that's fine. Your Shibori is not going to be identical between pieces, and that's the beauty of this, is because it's art. So this earring is going to be slightly different. It's going to look the same with the same beads, but it's going to have a slightly different coloring from the Shibori lace, or the Shibori ribbon. So I am just going to set this on, and it doesn't matter how tight it is because we're not going to be doing that top part just yet. And I'm just going to go down just to the other edge of the design. And I'm just going to pull that tight, and I've fanned it out just a little bit. But what I'm going to do is I'm then going to take my ribbon, and I am going to start by holding it in place a little bit there and just getting that edge right up to the edge. And I'm going to come up through and kind of snag a little piece of the ribbon, if I can get the ribbon because it's bent. There we go. And I'm just going to start tacking this down along the outside edge of my design. Now I'm keeping it just on the inner edge because we are going to be cutting this, and I don't want to cut my threads. And again, we will be going over it with the beading threads, so it'll get doubly tacked down. But again, I don't want this to get cut. So I'm just taking little bites, and they're not really little. They're, it's just a whip stitch or a basting stitch just to get this tacked down into the spot that you need it. So we're just going to do this all the way around on this side, and I may have enough thread on this needle. I may not. I may have to start again just because I'm using the leftovers from the other earring. And because this is pretty uniform other than the shape of the earring, I did a uniform design, so it's symmetrical. So there's the same number of beads on either side and the same pattern. We don't have to worry about mirroring on this. We're just going to do the exact same thing. So, when you're doing shibori, if you're doing a design and the left side's different than the right, if you're doing a pair of earrings, you have to make sure that your left side on one earring is the right side on the other, just to mirror so that they're, symmetrical. And you don't have to, but I always find that it's better. I think it's better to have mirrors. So anyways, I'm going to continue to go around this here on this side. And this is probably going to be what takes the longest for you if you're doing this, or you attempt to do something like this. Tacking down the ribbon is probably, the most tedious portion of it. And really, once you start getting the hang of doing shibori, it'll start to go a lot faster for you, because you'll be able to be like, okay, I'm going to cut the ribbon, I'm going to place it here, I'm going to do my border beads. And I think with the curated bead box that I got, I think I'm going to do a pair of earrings or a pendant with shibori. Ooh, and I just hit my light. And I'm going to show you how to do it so that it's asymmetrical and you don't have to do beading all the way around, where you have the shibori kind of overlaps the edge. It's a little more of an advanced technique, which is why I don't necessarily do it on video, because that does take a little bit more skill to get the shibori wrapped around, because you have to cut the design. So let's say I wanted to wrap it over. I'd have to cut the design out where I want to wrap it over, stitch it, and then continue on with the design. All right, so I got the first side done. Now the next side, I'm going to come up over here along this other edge, and I'm going to start by just bringing my needle up through, probably close to where I started the ribbon, and I'm just going to take I'm just going to get a bite of the first edge of the fabric here if I can. So this is folded over. As you can see, there's a lip there. I'm just trying to get in the lip without getting the second pleat. But I'm trying to get a good bite of that fabric. So there we go. I got a good bite of the fabric. And because the stitch pulled up, it pulled out, I'm just going to tack that back down. Again, you've got to be careful. If you get just the edge, it will pull out. It's just fabric. So now I'm going to go back up through that same spot now that I've gotten it flattened down. And I'm going to start again on this side doing the same thing, where I'm separating my ribbon and I'm just tacking it down. And so, because I'm doing it this way because I want it to look like when you look at it, it's tighter up at the top. And while you're not going to see a ton of the Shibori ribbon on this design, what I was hoping to go for is the leaf petal fans out from the center. So this being the center of the flower, your leaf would fan out. And so I think, I think this is going to be a good design. And so my pleats aren't exactly even when I cut. So when I cut my Shibori ribbon, I measured the length that I wanted roughly, and I cut it widthwise against the ribbon. So what I mean by that is I took my ribbon, I measured it and cut it here so that I had a really nice wide piece, but then I cut it in half this way. So I lengthwise stretched it out and cut it in half so that I would have two pieces, because I didn't need them that wide for this design. Now, if I was doing a bigger pendant for a necklace, or if I wanted it more puffy, I would have left it, full width. But again, I wanted it spaced out so that there was a few ripples, but not so tight that it was so densely packed that it was hard to get in between or see in between. All right, and so I'm just coming along and stitching the edge here. And again, it does not have to be perfect when you're doing this tack down, because again, this is just getting it so that it's going to set in place and stay while you're putting down your beads. And your beads are going to be what really tacks it down, because you're going to be going through it multiple times. So not only is your whip stitching here or your basting going to be tacking it down, but your beads will be going through this multiple times around the edge. And we're almost done with this side. Couple more stitches and we'll be down to the bottom, which at that point, once you get to the bottom, you need to decide where you want your ripples to fall, because when you tack down those ripples, they're going to need to be tacked down in a specific direction, and I'll show you what I mean by that here in just a second. So I am up to my last stitch on the edge here, and I've just stitched down the last piece. So now, oops, as I'm throwing things, so now I have these ripples, and so the ripples, I could push them all to one side, I could push them all to the center, I can do some to this side, which is what I did on this one, because I wanted it. So I'm going to fold over a ripple or two, and I'm going to come up through and pierce both of those ripples or ribs. And I'm just going to go back down through and kind of tack it down in that direction. So you see these two are going up to this side. Now I'm going to take these two ripples or ridges and do them to this side. But what I want to do is I want to make sure that when I do it, I'm only getting those two, and I'm not really going very far. So there's one. I didn't get that second one very well. So there's two, and I am just going to tack those right back down here so they're to the outer side. And then these other ones in the center, I am just going to basically come up through the ripple or the rib and tack down toward the center. Then come up this side through the rib and tack down Once I pull my thread tight toward the center here, and that's just going to give me a unique pattern. So when I start putting in beads, these ripples will just, they'll kind of fan out. So now that I'm done that, I'm going to put one more stitch in because I see a spot that's kind of raised up. I want to make sure they're tacked down. You don't want this coming up. And then I am going to come back up to the top and do the same thing with this top piece. I'm going to make sure that when I'm stitching my beads down, that this is tacked down quite nicely. And I'm just coming up through. I'm making sure I grab, so I'm just doing like an overcast stitch because there's a thread there that goes across. I'm just making sure I catch that thread and tacking it down because again, this is going to get covered with beads. And same thing, tacking it down. And so that's all nice and tacked down. The one thing that I will tell you is don't ever finish off one earring before you've completed the other one, because let's say I've done this one, I've done my design, and I get to this one, and something with the shibori causes me to change my design either up here or down here. I have to add more beads or something because it's just not covering, or let's say for whatever reason, my beads aren't covering my stitching here and I have to do a second row in here. I'm going to come back and add a second row there so that my earrings match each other. So now I'm just going to tack this off and I'm just going to do a wrap around the threads, and I'm just going to tie a simple knot. And then I'm just going to tie this off. Because remember, this is going to all get glued down when we're done. So we really don't need to worry about it, coming apart. The glue's going to hold all of that thread down. So now I'm going to take maybe 2 wingspans, little less than 2 wingspans of Wildfire. And I'm using Frost. And I'm going to take my number 12 beading needle. And so I am going to thread on my, if I can thread the needle here. So I'm doing this off camera here just because I have a magnifying glass on my light. There we go. It makes it a lot easier to see those holes. So I always recommend, if you're going to be doing beading with lots of little beads, get a light with like a 10x zoom. It's great. And so again, this one I'm going to be doing a tacking stitch. So I'm going to go up through anywhere, pull my thread down until I have a little tail, not a big tail, maybe a couple inches. And I'm just going to go back down through, because then I can tie this into a knot. Oops, if I don't pull it through. See, that's what I didn't want to do. So sometimes I'll have a big tail. I'll do this, and then I'll just pull until I have a little tail. Like I said, just about an inch or so. And then I'm just going to do a knot. So I did one tie there, a second tie, and then I'm just going to do a surgeon's knot, which you wrap around twice and tie, and then there you go. That's not going anywhere. So now my thread is nice and taut. So the first thing I'm going to do to start out is we're going to need a big crystal and 2 of these dark blue beads, and I grabbed a green one with it. So I'm going to come up through my point as close to the point as I can get it without going out of the purple. And I am going to take and pull my thread all the way through. I'm going to pick up a purple. the big crystal and a purple, because this is going to be our starting point of our bouquet. And I'm going to get that on there, and then I'm going to make sure they're nice and tight, and I am just going to go down. So here we're already covering our edging of the shibori with this first stitch. Now I am going to come back up through everything one more time because these are some big beads. So I want to make sure that they are stuck down really well, and I'm getting as close to that starting stitch as I can get, and going back through. Now your threads are going to show because these are really big beads for shibori and bead embroidery, which is why we've got some of those seed beads covering things, because I really don't like having thread showing anywhere if possible. All right, so now that we've got that, the next step is we're going to pick up our bead. We're going to pass through our leaf bead. And again, the thread will show on this, but we're going to cover it up. And I'm going to go back through all 3 of those beads, because this is going to also secure this this set of beads, because that is a very big heavy crystal, and crystal beads like this tend to be sharp. And don't worry if your leaf bead doesn't look right just yet, because we're going to fix that in this next step. So now I'm just going to pull my threads through. I'm going to make sure that bead is, and like I said, see, you're going to see your threads, and that's fine. Now you could skip that step if you don't want to do it that way, and you want to just stitch your bead on like this, so it does, so those threads don't show. But I wanted to secure it and make sure that I'm in the center, and that's why I went back through it. And I also wanted to add thread. So now I've came up on the side of the green bead of my leaf bead. I'm going to go back through my leaf bead, and I am going to secure this to my shibori by going back down the side. And again, I'm going on a diagonal like this so that it's anchoring it down really tightly. And I'll pull that as tight as I can get it. And so that bead really isn't going to go anywhere, because it's going to stick up a little bit, but it's not going to go anywhere. Now, the next step is going to be to add those flowers. So I'm going to come up as close as I can to that leaf bead at the bottom between the purple and the leaf bead. And I'm going to pull my thread tight. I'm going to pick up a flower bead. And then out of the bargain bead box kit, I'm going to take one of those 2mm beads, and they have different colors of these little beads. And what I'm doing is I'm looking for the ones that are the most purple in color, or close to lavender in color as I can get. And I'm just going to pick up one of those. And I am going to go back down through that flower bead and right back through the same spot that I came up. And be careful that you don't twist your thread in your bead, because otherwise it will do that and snag up. And just pull that as tight as you can get it. Make sure your bead is upright, and just pull it tight. And so you've got your next one. Now I'm going to come up through the other side in the similar position, holding that thread tight because I want to make sure this one doesn't loosen up. And I'm going to do the second leaf, or the second flower. So I'm going to pick up my flower bead. I'm going to pick up my 2mm, and I'm going to go back through the flower and right back into that spot. and pull nice and tight. And again, making sure my 2mm is standing upright as much as possible so that there's nothing showing. And if you have to, I'm just going to use a piece of wire here just to do that. And you pull it tight. And you might have a little bit of thread showing in that, but really from a distance, it's not going to be seen. So then the next step is, and what you really can't see in here, is there's a green bead in there and a green bead in there. And so what we're going to do now is I'm going to come back up through between the crystal and my flower. Because again, this is going to be the green as in a leaf underneath. I'm going to pick up a green bead. And this is where this design, I think, lends itself to, it's really unique. And I'm just going to tack this bead down on this side. And then we're going to do the same thing on the other side. We're just going to come up between and now you don't necessarily have to do the silver. I did because I wanted it to cover up some stuff. You could leave it like this. I think the silver adds just a little bit of pizzazz to it. And so I'm just tucking these down. And just pulling those in and as tight as I can get them underneath my flowers. And then the next thing is we're going to come up right next to this purple bead at the bottom here. And this is going to help push this purple bead up into place. I am going to come up right at the bottom, if you will, just to the left side here. I am going to pick up a seed bead, a bicone, and a seed bead. And then I am going to come back down right next to, or if you can, go through the green bead if you want to. I'm going to come down right next to it because, again, this is going to get covered with additional seed beads, so I don't need to go through that green bead. And I'm just going to pull that in like that. Now I'm going to come up between the bicone and the silver bead. And then I'm going to go back through the silver bead. So this is going to stand up that silver bead. And I'm sorry if I keep hitting the camera. My thread is awfully long. And I'm going to pick up 2 seed beads. And then I'm going to go around this other bead and just tack this in right here on the other side of that purple bead. So that gives us this 3 right here. Oops. Did I just... Nope. Thought I had got past my thread through the wrong spot, but I didn't. All right, now I'm going to go through, back up through the center, and I'm going to pull it nice and tight. I'm going to go through these 2 beads, the 2 beads I just added, and I'm going to pick up another bicone, and I have a bunny's nose on my leg, if you could see that. I wish you could see that underneath my feet. Here, I'm going to pick up my bicone and my seed bead, and I am going to tuck down right next to that green bead. Now, oops, and try not to wrap your thread around the flower beads. All right, so now that I've got that in there, so I've got my starting point. So I've gotten up to here, and now we're ready to start adding our silver beads. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come up here a little higher up next to the green leaf bead. And then I'm going to pick up 5, 2, 3, 4, 5 silver 8-ohs. And I'm going to make sure that they tuck underneath those, around those flowers. And I'm going to go through this purple bead. And I'm just going to go just through just the purple bead. Okay. For the moment. I just want to make sure before I continue on that that's nice and tight, and it is. And now I'm going to go back through the crystal. And again, this crystal is going to get several passes of thread, so it's going to be on there nice and tight. And you want to make sure that's the case. And I'm going to go back through that purple. And again, you can bend this still until we've, you know, completely secured everything. Then it'll get to the point where you won't be able to bend it. And then now I'm coming out of this bead. I am going to go through this, not the center bead, but the one just to the left when it's facing upright, and through that bicone. Okay. And then I'm going to come back up through this silver bead that's after the bicone. So I'm coming out the silver bead to this side of the bicone. I am then going to pick up an additional 5 beads. And so I'm going to grab some more seed beads here because I'm going to need a few more. So we'll just grab a bunch. And I'm going to pick up 5. Okay. And then I am going to fold it over and go back through my seed bead here. Okay, I'm not going to go through the purple. I'm going to go through the seed bead. And now that that's there, I'm going to continue on, and I am going to stitch through all of these beads again. Because again, it's going to be loose until I tighten it. And so your threads will still show until you've tightened it up. I'm going to go through my last 2 beads and back down through my fabric and coming out. That will secure those beads nice and tight. So now you've made your first S. So now we're going to make the second S, and we're going to attach that. So I'm going to come back up through from the top, and I'm going to pick up 5 seed beads. 3, 4, 5. And instead of coming and getting this tucked down, again, making sure that it's tucking around, instead of going through that bicone, you could go through this bead, but I'm going to go through the purple bead and go back down through because we're going to do the same thing. Okay, on this side. So we're going to make 2 passes on this. So now I'm going through that purple. I'm going to come out this purple again. So this is going to start to get tight because you're literally putting 6 or 7 passes through these beads. But that's fine because these are going to be really securely on there. And if you can't get it to come out, you could go through the fabric. I'm trying to get it to come through. It's just not. It's getting stuck on. There we go. It was getting stuck on the seed bead. So it's going to get tight. That's going to be one of the last passes through those anyways. So now just making sure it's pulled up. I'm going to go through the bead to the right of the bottom center, through the bicone. Well, if I can get through the bicone. Okay. Through the bicone, through that other seed bead there that's underneath. And we are going to pick up 5 more seed beads. And then we are going to come up, making sure we're nice and tight in there. And we're going to go through those 5 we just put through the purple. And so that's literally the hardest part of this, is getting this part done. Now back through those last 2 and back through my fabric and pulling everything nice and tight. And so there we go. We've got our seed beads. Now the last 2 things we're going to do before we start doing our border and this top part is I've got 2 little sprigs of seed beads sticking out here because I wanted some sprays. Because when I was looking at this, and this one's not as bad as this one, I had some spots right here that I could see fabric, like I can see it right there where it's sticking out. And I didn't like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm literally just going to stick my needle up through that spot where the shibori is up just a little bit. I'm going to pick up 3 seed beads, so 2, and then the third one I'm going to leave on the needle, and then I'm going to just pull it down. So I want to hold on to that last seed bead, and I'm going to go back through. So I'm holding that last seed bead up by the needle, and I'm just going to go back through these 2, and I'm going to go back through that same spot. So basically I'm just making a little stamen, if you will. Now you could have done this in your flowers, inside your flowers too, if you wanted to. I just decided I was going to, do it on the outside and just do the little things on the inside of the flowers. And I'm going to do the same thing on this side. So pick up 2, pick up the third one. And then if you wanted to, you could literally just do this, hold on to these 2, go back through, and then just take your seed bead and just hold on to it and pull until you're down close. That's another alternative. However you want to do it, it's literally just, holding one out and not going through that third seed bead, so it forms a nice little, tight little stamen there, and they're going to stick out a little bit, and that's what I wanted. Again, it's a floral. So now I've started on this side, and it doesn't really matter which side I start on because it's going to start out the same. Everything is going to start out for this pattern, and we're going to go around in uniformity. It's going to be a seed bead. So first we're going to come up as close as we can to that spot we just came out of with those little silver stamen thingies, as close to the edge as possible. And it's going to be underneath the flower. So this first set is going to be underneath the flower. You're not going to see it that much. I'm going to pick up a silver, a purple, and a silver. Now starting this out is the only time you're going to be picking up 3 beads from here on out. The rest will be 2. And I'm going to tuck that as close as I can to where it's coming out. And I'm just going to go down. So now this just starts your standard backstitch beading. And again, making sure you're as close to the edge as possible. That was a little too far in. And we're going to just tack down and come back up through right before the purple bead. And that's kind of right in the middle of the purple bead. That's by the silver. And this is going to be the hard part, is getting this started. Once you've got it started, and things are a little bit tighter, it goes a little bit quicker. All right, and I'm going to go through the purple and the silver. And then as we can see from the pattern, the next one is going to be a green. So I'm going to pick up a green bead and a silver bead. And we're just going to tack down right along the edge there. And if you're having trouble getting through the painted fabric, wiggle your needle like I just did. It tends to help some. All right, we're going to come back up through. And again, I know this doesn't look like much when you're beading it and the beads look loose, but as you do this back stitching, you can tighten it up. So we're going to now pick up another purple. So I'm going to get a few purple here. And some more seed beads, because we're going to need a bunch more of those. We're going to need a few more green. Probably more than that. And then definitely some more bicones. So we'll get a few more bicones here. And so I've got my purple bead, picking up a seed bead. And wiggling it through, pulling it tight, coming back up through where the purple on the back side of the purple, going through those two seed beads. And now normally you don't want to use really big beads to do this because your threads will show in spots, but I'm trying to use and that one's a broken bicone, so I'm going to set that aside. I like to use 4mm and 8/0s or 2 or 3mm and 11/0s. You could use 6mm and 6/0s, but again, you kind of want your beads to be of similar size. The bigger the bead, the harder it is to hide the threads when you're doing this. And again, this takes a lot of time to do. I'm only doing one earring with you, and this video is probably going to be all total a 2-hour video for this tutorial. And that's only me doing one earring after I've already designed it and painted it, and probably showing you how to finish it off, but then actually finishing it off camera. And see that you got to be careful of that. Like I have that, it's a little too far over. So I see where my hole is, but now I'm just going to move it over just a hair. Because I really want it to be right along the edge. All right. That might be, if I would stop hitting the camera and shaking everything. All right, the next color, so we're doing purple, green, purple, pink, purple. The next color is green. So we're alternating between these so that we get this florally coloring. And I like always having either a silver, gold, copper, bronze, just some metal to go in this design. I think in the next one we do, I may use some GIMP and show you how to use GIMP. And see, that one went too far in. All right, I wasn't paying attention to that. So we're going to unthread the needle and pull this out because I didn't want that far in. So if you ever do that and you realize before you've you know, back stitched it in if you've put your needle through and then you realize your beads are not sitting where you want them to, pull it out and just reline it up, because again, you don't want it to not sit where you know, where you're intending it to. And see, that's better. You know, take your time, and you know, and hopefully you have fun with it. I love doing this just because I love seeing how the ribbon lays and, you know, what unique things I can make with the beads. So now if I were to do something, you know, for example, and I'll show you this once I cut these, you know, I could take these leaves and put them together on top of each other and make a really fancy collar necklace, and, you know, do multiple leaves or do a flower. And I know in one video coming up here in the near future, not related to the bead boxes that I get, I want to do a poinsettia with Shibori. And so the majority of the leaves will be done in the Shibori ribbon, and then we'll have red and like red and gold or red and silver, I haven't decided which, seed beads for the flower, and then green, you know, green and you know, green and gold or green and silver, whatever I decide for the leaf petals. But it'll literally be a poinsettia. I'm going to do a brooch for you. All right, so we did green. Now we're up to the bicone pink. And so now, as you can see, we're right to this point where the next one is going to be the purple. And then we're going to do that green at the top. So now I'm coming out from the back side of the bicone, going through the bicone, the silver, and we're going to do purple, silver, and that should get us close to the top, almost to the very, 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 very top. Okay, so I am pretty close to that to being at the top. So on this one, for some reason, this seems to be a little shorter, but, or the beads are just off just a little bit, where my top is a little bit tighter, but that's fine, because again, we're just going to do the same thing. I'm going to pick up one of those greens, those 2mm greens from the kit, and a, silver seed bead. And then now, because we're trying to make a point here, and I want that green to be the tip, I am going to make sure this is really tight, and I'm going to go down on the other side, just on the edge. So when I pull this tight, those beads can't help but form a little bit of a point. So then I can come back up through right at the edge here, and I'm trying to get it where I want it. There we go. Right at the edge here. And I'm going to go back through that green and back through that silver so I can start going down the other side. Okay. And so there's my point right there. Now, again, we're going to go back down the other side in the same order, but reverse. So I have a purple here. I'm going to pick up a purple and a silver, and I'm going to go back down. So this is literally going to be mirroring. This second side is going to be mirroring the first side. As you can see, I've got 2 purples, 2 pinks, 2 purples, 2 greens, 2 purples, 2 pinks. So we're mirroring. And I'm going to just continue on down this side, making sure I get the Shibori and tack that down as well with these beads. Now, just so you know, this needle that I'm working with, I use this a lot, and you can see, like, there's nicks in the needle. It's bent. This needle is probably going to be to the point where at some point it's going to break on me. I tend to be hard on needles. I go through them. I probably go through, I don't know, at least 1 or 2 a month. Just because I'm hard on them. I will admit that. All right, so now we're up to a bicone and a seed bead. And we're going to come back down the other side. And so I know you guys are going to be seeing this on the 15th. So last Monday, the video that I released, I recorded before the solar eclipse. So this is actually being recorded. The solar eclipse was this past Monday, so it's Thursday night that I'm recording this for you, because then I have to edit it over the weekend and then I'll post it on Monday. But I don't know if you got to see the solar eclipse. I live in Ohio, so I got 40 seconds of totality, and I have to say it was the most incredible thing that I think I've ever witnessed. All right, so picking up another purple and another silver. Yeah, so I sat outside and I watched it with my next door neighbor. She came over. Oh, excuse me. She came over. We sat outside on my back patio, literally had those glasses on and stared up at the sun for an hour. Watched it go into totality. I took the glasses off just so, because when it went into totality, I couldn't see anything through the glasses. So I took off the glasses, got a picture on my cell phone, which is not great. It's kind of grainy because of the, I didn't have a solar filter on, but I did manage to get a picture of the corona. And then I just spent the rest of the time looking around, in awe of the way everything looked, and the crickets were out, and my solar lights came on, my nighttime solar lights came on in my garden, and then I was just, I was overwhelmed because, that's a once in a lifetime thing. I will probably never see another totality unless I go travel for it, in my lifetime. And that's just, it's sad. It's like after that eclipse, I was like, we need to have a total eclipse every year. Like, nature needs to change so I can have a total solar eclipse like that once a year. I'd be okay if it was every April. I did notice that the temperature dropped significantly. It was really nice and warm, and I was actually starting to sweat being out in the sun, in Ohio. And then when the temperature dropped, I was like, wow, it's kind of chilly. And so, yeah, so it was amazing. And I hope you got to see it, live. If you didn't, there's another one, I guess, in 2044, 2045 coming to the US. If you get a chance to see a total solar eclipse, do it. It's worth it. And I was thankful that we didn't get rained out, because the forecast for Ohio was cloudy, and thank God it didn't get cloudy until after the eclipse. So I was lucky. But anyways, just an amazing experience. I hope you got to witness it. If you didn't, sorry. Maybe you got to see it in 2017. I did not. I got a partial eclipse in 2017, which was still awesome, but just not nearly as awesome as the totality. All right, so I'm getting down to the end here, as you can see, I've got my pink, I'm doing another purple, and my allergies are acting up. It's been raining here in Ohio all day. We were supposed to get severe storms, and thankfully it looks like they're holding off. A few weeks ago, I did have a tornado that touched down about 3 miles from my house. That was a little too close for comfort. Thankfully, it missed my house. It got the airport near my house. But anyways, yeah, so once we get this part done, we only have to do the tip here, and then we are done. All right, so we're up to a green. And then we've got a purple, and literally we're done. And I know you're looking going, well, why don't you just end with a green there? Is because I'm putting that purple bead underneath. That purple bead's going to go underneath the flower and just cover up the last remnants of the felt. And it's exactly what I did on this one. So this one is, like I said, it seems to be slightly, the beads seem to be slightly either shorter or higher or something. So, but again, you have to make sure that you're doing it evenly, because especially if you're going to sell it, you want to make sure that, you know, they look perfect. And so all I'm going to do for this is I'm just going to get as close to that little, and I'm going to call it a sticky outy thing, and I'm just going to stick my needle through and just pull tight. And that is it. We are done with that portion there. And now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come back up through, and I'm going to come right up next to, as close to that green bead as I possibly can. And we are going to pick up, and again, this is another time where we're picking up 3. I'm going to pick up a silver, a bicone, and a silver. And we are going to tack down dead center and then we're going to come back up through, and we're going to do it. I'm just going to come back up through all 3 beads again, which is fine. And then we're going to pick up a amethyst, a purple, dark purple, and a seed bead. And I know we're picking up 3 beads, which is not normal, but again, this is just a decoration. It's not, and we're going to go back through again, dead center, and I think I'm going to go on the other side of this, and I'm just going to stick through, and I know that's going to be a little short because it moved, but we are going to tack this down a second time by coming back up through, because again, you've got a big bead there, so you want to go through them at least twice. Always make sure you're going through anything that's big or anything that you think might be loose at least 2 times. So now there's that. And I'm going to stick back through this bead. The one thing you want to make sure of is you don't do is what I just did there is I pulled a little too tight. So I'm just bending. I could cut this thread here and tie it off, but I just stretched it a little bit. And we will flatten that out here in a minute anyways, but I'm going to go back through this bead And I'm not going to put it through the fabric just yet because I want to pull it and get it as tight as I can so that it's not going to show thread. And then I'm going to go back through the same hole that I came out of the first time. And then we're done. That's it. We're done. So now we've got the two earrings done. I am going to knot this off. And again, remember, we're gluing this, so it really doesn't matter if it's a perfect knot or if you have a lot of knots. So I'm just going to do the one, and I'm going to snip off, leaving a tail. And now we're going to get some fabric to put on the back. And so I'm thinking on this one, I'm thinking either white, because I don't know if I have pink, so let me see what I've got for fabric, for Shibori fabric. So I've got pinks, I've got blues, I've got see, that's close, but I don't know if I like that. That's pink. I think that's too light. The bright pink is too bright. And I don't want to use blues. And I don't have any purples. Well, I do have purples, but again, that one's too dark. That one's too blue. I think this is going to be the closest one. And so we're going to have to figure out what we're going to do with thread. Because again, you want to match your thread to your felt. And unfortunately, I don't have blue or purple tiger tail, do I? I have blue. So I have blue beading thread, which might be close enough to this that we could get away with it. So the one thing you want to do with your Shibori is you always want to match your thread to your backing. See, that's closer on that side. So if I put this side out, but I do like this side out better, and that's not too bad. It matches pretty close. And the reason why you want to do that is just so it hides the thread as much as possible. Now I'm going to start trimming this with big scissors just to get the big stuff off, and making sure you don't cut your beads. And then I'm going to grab my little, if I can find my little scissors here. I've been doing a lot of beading and not cleaning stuff up, so my bad. I've got to clean my craft room. All right, we'll just have to use these. I can't find my curved scissors. I don't know what I did with them. I'm probably staring right at them, and this is why I like to keep my craft room clean, because otherwise I lose everything. That's gonna bug me. Anyway, making sure you don't cut any threads. So if you see threads like that are sticking out, just try to make sure you don't cut them when you're going around. And try to get as close to the beads as possible, which is why I do it on the back side here, is because then I can see the threads. And see how close I'm getting to the threads. And again, this is going to be kind of a weird shape, which is fine. We don't necessarily need to have it perfect. So there's that one. Okay, now we're going to get this one. And again, I'm just going to use the big scissors to cut the majority. And then we are going to use the back side here and make sure that I don't cut my threads. Again, I can get very close. I just don't want to cut the threads. So what I'm trying to do on this is when I go around the edging, and I'm going to go around the edging with 11/0s instead of 8/0s because I want tiny edging. And yes, I'm cutting a little bit of the shibori there, and that's fine. I'm making sure I'm not cutting, like, that's pretty close, but I didn't cut the thread. You want to make sure you're as close as possible, but not cutting the threads. So there we have our 2 beads, our 2 earrings. Now I'm debating whether I want to make a circular piece up here and attach it, and then be able to do posts on this, or if I want to just do my regular drops, which you know, I certainly could. I haven't decided that yet. We're going to glue these down first, and then I'm going to pause and let this glue dry, and then we will pick back up as soon as the E6000 has set up. And I am actually finished up a tube, so I get to open a new tube now. And again, I like these little tubes because I can go through one of these little tubes before the glue gets nasty. And so I'm just gonna give this a nice big good coat of glue. I'm gonna get as close to the edges as I can without like getting the direct edge. And then I'm just going to set my E6000 there. And I'm going to stick this down as close to the edge, because again, this Ultra Suede is quite expensive. And I am going to press this down and press it in and make sure that it's nice and burnished down. Okay. And then I'm going to do the other one, and I've got a bunny at my foot again. She just I don't understand what it is. She won't come to me any other time, but when I'm doing YouTube videos, she's right under my feet constantly. Apparently she likes you guys. Or she likes it when I'm talking to you. So anyways, so there is that. And then this one, I'm going to set down as close as I can to the other one. Making sure I don't get glue on my shibori there. That will wipe off as long as it's not, once it sets, it's set, but you can wipe it off the silk pretty easy. All right, so that's there. I'm going to let these set up, and we will be back to conclude with finishing up the backing in a minute. I'll be back. All right, guys, so I've gotten to the last beads, and I finished up the last bead. So what I'm going to do now is I'm coming out this bead, and it's a little wonky, but it will get fixed as soon as we go back through. I'm going to go backwards. So I'm going to go backwards through the fabric, and I'm going to come back out this second to last bead here, just to do a little bit more of an anchor on that bead. I'm going to go back down through that other bead and just kind of tighten that up just a hair there. And then now again, I'm coming through the front. I am going to go through the fabric just a little bit. And then I'm going to go up through these beads because I'm going to show you how to put the loop on. And I'm just going to go through my beads because I want to get up toward the top. And so I'm just going to run my thread through, and I'm going to run my thread through coming out next to that green bead at the top. And then I am going to stick my needle through the fabric and making sure I get a good bite of fabric here. And having that bead at the point makes it really good. So now I'm going to pick up 2, 3, 4, 5 silver beads. I'm going to pick up one of these purple beads and another silver bead. And so that's going to make a nice little loop. And I'm literally just going to go down in, and I'm going to poke in through the fabric, again, trying to stay as close to my original thread as possible. And I'm going to pull that tight. So that's going to form a little loop there at the top. Now we went on the one side of the bead, and that's fine. That's not going to be a very big loop. So I think I'm going to take that out, and we are going to do something slightly different. I'm going to have to add some I'm going to have to add some beads to that. And I don't necessarily like the purple on there, so I'm going to pull out my thread, rethread my needle, I'm sorry, guys. I'm trying to rethread the needle here. There we go. I'm going to pick up, I think, 3 more of these silver beads. I think that will work. And then instead of going through the fabric, I'm going to go through this green bead. Just because I think what I'm going to do is then pick up another silver, skip 1 silver, and go back up through. So I'm going to skip that last silver and go back up through the 2 silver. So I'll show you here in a second. So it forms a little triangle there. And then I am going to go back up through all of these beads, and I think that's going to be perfect because that's going to give me what I need for my loop. And I'm going to pull through all of these beads. And so it's going to make a nice little loop with that. And I'm going to go back through my fabric. And make sure that I'm tightening this down nicely. And then I'm going to come up through the left side and just go through that again. And then when I come back through another pass, I'm going to go through the right side, and that should secure everything. And this will tighten up as you do more passes. So again, going through that last bead, through the fabric, making sure I am on the right side this time. And I'm going to go up through that right bead and just continue looping. And making sure that you don't do that and get what I just did there. So I got the thread caught. And so what I'm trying to do is trying to loosen it up just a hair. Don't want to break the needle, but just loosening it up if I can, so that I can pull it through the beads. and getting the beads. All right, I need to see this under. I will be right back. All right, so what I'm doing, guys, is I'm taking off the needle because I need to pull out this thread here. Potentially pull out of the back one of the threads that I just put in. Because what I did is I ended up splitting All right, guys, I'm going to pause you for a second. All right, guys, sorry about that. I ended up having to cut my thread. So I'm going to do it a little bit differently here. I think this will work a little bit better. So I'm back up to my bead. I am going to poke through the back. I know what I need to do now. You've got to be real careful with this. So I ended up having to cut it off and reattach my thread. So I'm going to pick up 3, 4, 5, of the silver again, 1 of the purple, and 3 more silver. And then I am going to go through that green bead. Okay, so now we're forming our loop. I'm going to pick up another silver, skipping this first one closest to the green bead and going back through, and making kind of a point there on the front so that it looks interesting. That purple bead is going to be close to the top, and that's fine. And I'm just going to go back through all of my beads, and it's going to be loose. And this is where you have to be careful when you're going back through, that when you wrap it around, you're not loosening things up. And I know that's kind of loose, so I'm going to go back through, and I'm going to try to get this to pull tight here. So I'm just going to start pulling on my thread. And now I am going to continue on. I'm going to go up through that bead on the left, which is what I was doing before, and go back up through my beads again. And again, make sure you're very careful as to, what you're snagging your thread on, because what happened was my thread got wrapped around. I'm going to go back through these beads, back through to the other side of, and I'm going to pull that nice and tight, and I'm going to go back up through the right side there of the green, go back up through, and I keep getting snagged on my scissors. And see, we're snagging, and you got to make sure that you don't snag. And then go back through that last bead, back through the fabric to the front. And, 'cause, 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 ' and then pulling that really nice and tight. Now I've gone through that several times. You could do it again if you wanted to. I think that should be fine. I'm going to probably go through one more time on each side just because I want to make sure that this is super sturdy. And we're going to have a jump ring on this, so I will show you how I'm going to attach the jump ring. Again, it's a different technique on making a loop for your bail. Now I didn't have to add that purple bead, and see, I've got a knot there because it wrapped around. And this is why I don't like this thread. There we go. This nylon thread tends to knot real easy, and not real thrilled with that, because especially when you're doing a lot of bead embroidery, having threads knot is not ideal. All right, I am going to go back up through one more time just to tighten that. Now I could add another bead in there. I might do that before we finish off, just to make it so that the threads don't show and it kind of sticks out a little bit. So I'm going to go back through last time through. So now I've got at least 5 or 6 passes here on my loop. So I know it's not going to go anywhere. And so what we're going to do here is just to add another bead. I'm going to go up through this bead on my embroidery here, right after that purple. I'm going to pick up another 8/0, and we're just going to do this real quick. I'm going to go up through the 8/0 that starts my bail, trying not to loop my, and then I am going to come down through the other loop on my bail, pick up another 8/0, go back down through the 8/0 for my design. And it's just a little accent thing that is going to sit there. And so now I've got this cute little loop, and you know, you can adjust it and figure out how you want your point to lay. And then now all I have to do is fasten off. I'm going to put a knot right here around my threads, and then I'm going to go through some beads, put another knot. So there's the first knot. I'm going to go through several beads. Come around the thread. Put another knot. Go through several more. And cut off. So we are done. And there you go. So now I am going to grab a jump ring and an ear wire. Got some jump rings there. And I am going to grab some stainless steel ear wires, just because I don't want this to tarnish. And again, my usually my Shibori and things I put nicer. Either I'll put sterling or I'll put stainless. And I am just going to loop my jump ring in. Ooh, if I can hold on to it here, and I just lost the jump ring. So we'll put a new one. And I'm going to get my tweezer nose here. And I have a bunny begging at my legs again. Every time I do camera work, she is always right here. I don't understand it. I guess she likes it when I talk to you guys. All right, and I'm going to open this pretty wide to get it in here. And then I'm just going to close that. And then I'm going to use my pliers to open up my, just because I think it's easier to do it this way than it is to, maybe it's easier to do it this way. There we go. There. And that's backwards. Of course it is. Make sure you put the earring on in the right direction, guys. Come on. There we go. All right, and then we just close up our, and there we go. So now you have this really nice, really pretty earring that is embellished. So anyways, I hope you enjoyed that. I'm going to go finish up the other earring, and I will see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.